Alison Armstrong. I've been telling my husband how excited I am that I get the privilege and the opportunity to speak with you today
Mm.
for so many reasons. And I'm so lit up about my listeners getting to experience your wisdom today. So thank you. Thank you for being
You're
here.
welcome. You're welcome. I'm really glad to be here. This is my first interview of the year.
Yay. And I know that you're not feeling 100%, so I honor you being here even more. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So you have been speaking on the topic of relationships and understanding men for, I'm guessing it's been over 30 years now. Am I correct in saying that?
This month is the 30th anniversary of
Wow.
our first workshop.
Wow.
And yes, I started studying men in February of 1991. And it was almost 4 years later when we did our first workshop. And in between, I spoke to women individually. And yeah, pretty much since I first found out I was a frog farmer, and I've been going at it, and everything I've learned about men is so different than what I was led to believe. It's
Yeah.
so different, and I couldn't not tell people. They're not who you think they are.
Mm,
And you're rereading the Queen's Code,
mhm.
and if you wanna do something really different, I encourage you to listen to the audiobook because I that book was channeled. I did not develop the characters. I did not develop the plot. I just did all the research, and everything in it has been validated by so many people. But the rest, I watched a movie and typed as fast as I could. And in the audiobook, which we published in 2022, I'm I couldn't help it. I'm not a voice actor or anything like that, but I couldn't help but try to recreate the movie that I watched
Mm,
and the emotion and the tension and everything that they felt. And people have reported that it occurs very differently having the book read to them than them reading to themselves and filtering the voices, right?
yeah.
Differently from their presupposition of how a man would say that instead of how they really said it, right?
Mhm.
Because there's
Yeah.
4 men as characters in the book. Anyhow, but knowing that you are in your second round of the Queen's Code, what happened to Kimberly in the first chapter, that happened to me. My colleague
Okay.
sitting next to me in a seminar uh, launched this attack on the seminar leader and basically all the men sitting in the room. And she was the one who was called a frog farmer.
So there are people listening who will have, I have so many questions already, but
Okay,
there are
I'll
people
let
who
you
are
go.
listening who will have no idea what the term frog farmer is. It's a very unique term. Can you
Yes.
please, just to kick us off, describe what a frog farmer is?
Okay. All right. So there's what Herb Tanzer said in that moment when she asked, why are men wonderful in the beginning? And they take you to wonderful places and they give you wonderful gifts and they listen to you talk about your pets and your family as if they care. And then after a few weeks or a few months, they turn into sports watching, pizza eating, beer drinking couch slugs. Why is that? She was. And so he was the one that said, oh, I see, you're a frog farmer. And as in, oh, instead of turning frogs into princes, you turn princes into frogs. And my life flashed before me of all the men that I thought were so wonderful in the beginning. And then, like, how could I have missed what a jerk they were? And I developed really the belief that I'd been conned, that men are con artists and they would be charming and wonderful and they'd pull you in. And then the moment they caught you, they would revert to their true selves. That's what I thought. And I didn't even think it. It was just true. It was my conclusion about them. And I had taken on, I'd taken on, you call it poking the bear. I had taken on like pressing them early and often to reveal that jerk before I fell in love with them.
There was already the expectation, this is what they're gonna turn into, so let me prove it to be
Yeah,
true.
not even turn into you. This is who you really are,
Ah. Mhm.
right? And I know if I push here, I'm going to see who you really are. And so when my colleague Lisa was called a frog farmer, and the how Herb was being when he said that, I actually was so happy. I was like, I just knew what he said was true, that somehow I was bringing out the worst in men. Somehow I was. And then I was thinking that's who they really were. It's what happens to men. They don't know how much they're bringing out the worst in women, and they think it's who we really are. And just wait, you'll see. She'll do that. They're all that way, not knowing that we're reacting to them basically antagonizing all of our instincts, and they're reacting to us antagonizing them. And one way to boil it down, Helena Grace, would be imagine if you unwittingly were causing someone to be really afraid. Only they couldn't even use the word afraid. They're reacting so fast to how thrown out of their own power they are. And they either have a fight reaction where they attack. That's the most obvious. Or they have a freeze reaction where they just shut down. And we can feel that. And we make up all kinds of stuff about why they withdrawn. And they do the same thing about us. Or they flee. They just say, I got to get away from this. This is too awful. I have to escape. And so all of us have different reactions, and we have different sequences of reactions. It's a good thing to share with one's partner when you notice, okay, when I'm really about something you've done, first I go here, and then I go there, and then I go there. And it's really funny when I figured it out and shared it with my husband, and he's just looking at me going, yeah, I know.
Why do we have so many of these misconceptions about one another, especially us as women? That stereotype that you describe of the man who just wants to sit on the sofa and doesn't help around the house, or one of the characters in your book who won't take out the trash, doesn't matter how many times she's asked him to do it. Why do we have these conceptions and beliefs and projections over men in that way? And some of them are true. Some of them are true, but as you uncover in your book, there's reasons why and all of those things in between.
I think how we get there is all right. So I'm going to go way before the individual interactions. So after digging for decades now, I would assert that as human beings, and it's actually not even a human instinct, we are constantly scanning and discerning, is this person like me or not like me? And one of the biggest differences between men and women, because of our how we access safety, most women seek the feeling of safety through the experience of connection. We're connected. And so we lean into the people that we perceive as the same as us because because connection's so much easier. Oh, you're like me. Oh, yeah, you're like me. I'm a happy person. You're a happy person. You're like me. I'm a skeptical person. You're a skeptical person. You're like me. So we lean into like me because that person feels the same or we perceive them as the same. And then we feel a connection. But the mistake we make with everybody, because you have so many individual differences, but especially with men, is we're like, oh, you're like me. And so the assumptions we make about someone that we perceive as like me is, well, because you're like me, you need what I need, you know what I know. What's obvious to me is obvious to you. I you do things for this, you're motivated by the same things and you do them for the same reason. Because of all that, I don't need to tell you what I need. I don't need to tell you what I need in a particular way. I can just criticize you and you'll change. I don't need to follow up because Any decent person is just going to follow through. And I don't need to describe what it looks like. It's obvious what it looks like. Take out the trash. So
Mhm.
honestly, take out the trash for a woman. There's when to take it out, and that's different criteria, right? There's full, that's interpretation. There's smelly, that's interpretation. There's I don't have enough room for what I'm about to cook to put the discards in there. No, not reading your mind about that. And so there's the removing of it. Make sure you don't drip. Make sure it's tied off. Don't spill anything. And then, of course, you have to put a new bag in. And whatever you put the new bag in, you either have to close the cupboard or you have to
Mhm.
put the lid down, or it's a whole process from beginning to end. Men don't know that.
But
They
we
don't know.
expect them to know all of the feelings that we have about
We,
that one thing.
the feelings, the thought, the steps, like that to us is one thing, take out the trash. To them, that is like 5 different tasks. And on top of everything else, estrogen and there's a book called Evolution's End that describes the third gender, which I got to witness in my daughter. The third gender is a pregnant woman. So there's a man, a woman, and a pregnant woman. It qualifies as a third gender because the hormones are so different in each of those states. Hormones configure the brain, hormones create thoughts, and then thoughts actually create hormones. They it's crazy how it interacts, and most people don't know, and we take it all personally, right? So estrogen configures the brain for the awareness that we need to monitor our safety at all times.
Which we're doing all the time as women.
All the time. All the time. We talk about this in our Understanding Women online course. Because we're monitoring, we have this consciousness of awareness, how it occurs, and men are like, you'll see them shaking their heads when I describe this in Understanding Men, because it's a recording of a live workshop. They're just like, what? How it occurs is that our environments talk to us.
I completely understand this. Yeah.
Yes, our environments talk to us. So to us, there's a truth in the trash needs to be taken out. That's how it occurs, that the trash has a need. It doesn't occur to us that we have a need for the trash to be taken out. When we think it's obvious the trash needs to be taken out because it's telling me it needs to be taken out, we don't know that they hear that too. And to them, trash, inanimate objects don't need anything ever. They're not talking to them because they don't have their brains wired the same. Just this simple thing of taking out the trash, which some men know that's one of the ways to a woman's heart.
Luckily, my husband does know that, and I don't have to take the trash out. So that's a huge win.
Just to finish what I started with the perception of sameness, we take it too far that they're exactly like me, and therefore all these expectations are valid. Now, what's interesting is for most men who find a feeling of security is the word they would use in productivity, right?
Men do. Men find
Men
that,
do
or women.
in being,
Okay.
yes. And so many women now, our
Yeah,
security is tied to our productivity and
definitely. Yeah.
connection, right? So we want to work with people that we get a lot done with and we feel connected to. And we'll steer to whichever one we need more of. And it's a mystery to a lot of people. So why is she asking me how I am now? She didn't care yesterday. She just wanted chop, chop, get it done. So we're a moving target to most people. But for most men who find their safety and productivity, their security and productivity, what they're doing it to more and lesser degrees of awareness is if you think of a hunter or a warrior who's scanning for team members. Men actually have team all the way at the biological level. Impregnation is a team sport. And if you look at the behavior of sperm from that point of view, they make sense why there's different kinds. And slow, fat ones and fast ones. And then there's these ones that are actually they're blockers. There's blockers and fighters and runners. And it's crazy how everything that's happening up here is happening biologically.
Right.
And so there's men where a woman will lean into sameness for connection, men lean into not me. They lean into, oh, she's different. And what they're scanning for, and this is so important, whether you're married or you want to be married, if you're coupled or you want to be coupled, or you want to participate in the business world on a team, they're scanning for complementary strengths. Complementary strength. So the way one man put it to me was Tom Brady is not looking for another world-class quarterback. He's
Right.
looking for a game changer in a Jerry Rice wide receiver.
Mm.
So they're looking for game changers. They're looking for complementary strengths like, oh, she is really smart in this way. She's really strong in this way. She's really perceptive in this way. She's really competent in this way. Oh, that's a good compliment to me. Right. So that's
Okay.
when
Yeah.
one man said to me, he goes, I'm not looking for someone who's like me. And this is why they lead into what many men would express as femininity,
Right.
because they perceive femininity as a
Complementary.
complementary
Yeah.
power. It's a different kind of
Yes.
power, and they have a lot of respect for it.
And it
And it
is seen as
mentions
powerful. It is actually seen as something that's powerful. And I think that
yes.
we've sometimes as women, we forget that our femininity, especially in relationships, is as powerful as it is.
Oh my gosh, it's off the charts, and think of it now in many different ways because masculine and feminine has a lot of baggage, and including that feminine equals weak and frivolous, and not at all. And as in the Queen's Code, Claudia talks about masculine and feminine, but I've also over time I talk about hunting mode versus gathering mode. In understanding women, we distinguish it that way. Or another way to think of it is a committed state of mind, which testosterone causes and fuels that. A committed, goal oriented, result oriented, impact oriented, accountable state of mind. Whereas estrogen creates more of an openness, an open, connected, receptive state of mind. And we can flip back and forth from one to the other, often involuntarily, which is one of the things I like women to be able to start being able to cause how they're being. We talk about that in understanding women, but it's so the thing that this comes down to, Helena Grace, is that when we perceive sameness, it initiates, it's part of the initiation of competition. Sameness plus scarcity equals competition. So we meet a man and we lean into, oh, we're like this way. We care about the same things this way. And then we take that sameness too far. And then we see what they're smart at. And it like starts your engine. It gets us fired up to prove to them that we're smart that way too. But they don't need us to be smart that way too. What they actually need is for us to be the team member who appreciates the team member they are.
Oh my gosh, something's really clicking about my relationship right now.
Very,
Yes.
very much what I'm talking about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so and this is, we both, men and women, we all need, even young people need admiration.
Yeah.
We need appreciation. We need admiration. We need to be in charge of some stuff, but not everything. So that's accountability. These are all ways we disempower other people. We withhold accountability, withhold appreciation, we withhold admiration. And so one of the things to express is, wow, I really admire that about you. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm not smart in that same way that you are. And wow, we could make a good team because you're smart like that, but I'm smart like this. And instead of, I'm going to prove to you I'm as smart as you are. And this applies to business as well. because we have this kind of funky idea and it prevents us from being included in teams and it prevents us from being taken with. So we'll try to get our boss's job by proving we're smarter than our boss, male or female, by proving we're more competent than them. Instead of complementary strength, they succeed. That's how we get their job because they're moved to the next job. Right? As they're succeeding and they see how much they
Mhm.
succeed because of the team member you are, this is a natural male ethic, by the way, in big business, big
Mm.
little business, right? In anything that requires more than one person. And so it's something to practice noticing. I love that we're the same this way, right? I've gotten to practice and learn this all over again since my husband died. I had to relearn everything. And but it's cool because I get, in a way, to start over. So with my boyfriend, Dan, which we've been together for 4 years, I've gotten from the very beginning to look
Yeah.
for what I admire about him and what his strengths are and tell him what my strengths are, him to observe what my strengths are. And oh my gosh, talk about my heart leaping. The first time that because I think like an engineer and I'm very precise. And early on, he started calling me Priscilla, but never as a criticism. Priscilla, we need Priscilla on this. How do you say? How do you pronounce
Yeah.
dysphoria? Do you mean diaspora? Yeah. It's or he's. Do you have time today to help me? I need the engineer, and
Mm.
he'll have me come look at something. How do we make this work? And he's not invalidated by he doesn't think that way. And he doesn't have to be because I don't invalidate him for not thinking about things. Well, it's
Right.
obvious. Why couldn't you figure this out? I'm like, thanks for calling on me.
And that's the key right there, I think that I'm hearing you say that I think so many of us women do is that we berate them for not doing it the way we think it should be done or how we want things to be done and forget to appreciate the way that they do things that actually we can't do or we wouldn't do in the same way.
Thanks.
And that's what creates that conflict and has, and you can talk about this, a direct impact on a man's emotional needs and how he feels about who he is.
This is one of the ways that men and women are a lot alike. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. We need our strengths to be admired and appreciated and called upon and set up to be able to play to our strengths. We need our weaknesses, and especially what we think our weaknesses are, to be not a big deal to them. And one of the moments I had in my marriage that had me realize how lucky I was someone asked me to do an interview for a magazine in writing. Interesting. Okay. So they gave me the prompts and I wrote the answers back. And they sent a photographer and I was on the cover, but it was really funny. And one of the questions was, what are your greatest weaknesses? And oh gosh, who wants to be asked that?
Right.
I talked to Greg. Okay, honey, they want me to write this. And so this is what I'm thinking my weaknesses are. And I'd tell him a weakness. And from the very beginning, he'd say, that's not really a weakness because that's what allows you to do this. And then I
Mhm.
tell him another weakness. No, that's not a weakness because you can only do this because of that. And then I tell him, and he kept saying this. And I was, wow, this is amazing. I said, so what do you think my greatest weakness is? And he was quiet for a moment and he said, sometimes you hang things on doorknobs.
How sweet.
I was stunned, right? Because as a criticism, and we're not good at criticism, and like, "Well, why didn't you ever tell me?" And he said, I did once a long time ago. And he didn't. You just like mentioned something about, but I didn't even remember you mentioned that. I had 2 babies in between. What are you gonna remember? And but it was so funny because all you had to do was say that one thing. And what I did is because I would hang things on doorknobs because they needed to go somewhere. So hang it on the doorknob because it's gonna go out of this room and somewhere else, or it's gonna go to the store. So it should go on that doorknob and go to the car. And I mean, it made perfect sense to me. But after that, I only hung things on my doorknobs, my office door. But yeah, and it's an interesting question even to ask and then to hear about in this idea of it being complementary. And it keeps going, Helen and Grace, because one man said, you can ask me to do something or you can tell me how to do it, but not both. And
Yeah.
because when we tell someone how to do something, we our way of executing something plays to our values, our preferences, and our own strengths. And men have said, why do things have to be organized in the dishwasher? When you close the doors, there going to be a party or something? So that like they're impact oriented. So show me how the way that you insist that I load the dishwasher has the dishes be any cleaner than the way that I load the dishwasher. Because isn't the point clean? Right?
Yeah. It's my husband's probably biggest it's a little gripe that we have is I'm really working on coming out of the programming, and what I probably witnessed growing up of telling a man how to do things. Like we as women in my house, we told a man how to do it and would tell him if it wasn't good enough. And
Yeah.
I have a very masculine and very capable man, a husband, and let's say he's cooking, if I kind of am wandering around the kitchen, I might make a comment of, "Are you gonna use that chopping board?" Or I would lower the heat on that. His first thing is, "Are you the one cooking?" And it always reminds us, and I think we're both aware of it, "He's got it, Helena. You can feel safe." It's a small thing, him just cooking, but Helena, take a breath, take a step back. He's capable. It's okay because he doesn't need me to micromanage. He doesn't need me to get at him. And it's like a little reminder for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could contribute something, it's not just because y your family modeled it, and their family modeled it, and their family modeled it, okay? Which we do mostly learn by modeling, but what's already in play are ancient instincts, survival instincts. If you think of millennia of most of humanity starving intermittently, if not constantly being on the edge of it. So that turn down the heat is what could be the difference between the food being edible or you having it literally to throw it out. You can't eat it, but you can't afford to go get more, right? It's that like recipes and the right way to do things and efficiency. It's more efficient. All of that is about conserving everything so we don't die.
Yeah.
And even my family loves soup. I love making soup.
Same.
And, but I was working full time, running a business. My husband is retired. He wants me to cook. I'm exhausted. I'm like, well, if you chop the onion, I pull up 3 big onions. You chop the onions, I'll make soup. And I leave and I come back and it's 45 minutes later and he's still chopping onions.
Okay.
And I look and take in, first of all, he's chopping onions with a steak knife,
Okay.
a small steak knife. Not efficient, not ergonomically correct. It could cripple him. What good is he going to be to me if he messes up his elbow and his shoulder by now? And they're not uniform. They're all different shapes and sizes.
Probably also because of the knife he's using.
And so I'm like, may I make a suggestion? And of course, I pull out what I consider the optimal chopping block for onions, not the wood. That's going to leave it on there. I bought the Santoku knife that's gonna release the onions and has this big blade and everything like that, and I've even designed the kitchen so that it's an optimal height for me because I'm little, I'm 5'2" of all things, but I'm little, so I had lower counters, and so I wouldn't mess up my shoulder when I'm chopping, and I'm trying to have him do this ergonomically, uniformly, and I show him all the stuff, and then he looks at me and goes, "I like my way,"
Yeah.
and he was at the place in life where my way or the highway. If you want me to chop onions, I'm gonna chop them like this. And so I just got in the habit of setting out the onions and don't go back in the kitchen for a long time
Yeah.
and never have him chop onions if it mattered.
But
Truly mattered that
that's a
they be
really good
uniform.
example because in that situation, like, I'm guessing from your knowledge and your wisdom, like, you didn't berate him, but that would be probably quite a natural instinct, or it could even lead to an argument for some couples. So in
Absolutely.
especially when we're living with a partner, we've been married for a few years and we all have our own ways of doing things. What
Yeah.
are some ways that women can better communicate with their partner, either about what they need or in a situation like that where you could have said something that would have meant he never ever chops onions for you ever again?
Yeah. Or changes a diaper. My son, my first husband, I showed him how to change a diaper. He only ever changed a diaper when he was accountable for our son, and we separated at a year and a half old. Greg was so excited to be a dad. He changed Claire's first diaper and he kept changing diapers. And watched how he did it. And I never corrected him ever because I met him after I started studying men. And then when she was a few weeks old, he came to me and he said, I notice when you change Claire's diapers, she doesn't have the same kind of blowouts
Right.
she had when I change her diaper. Would you show me what you do differently? Sure. And like, it took such a discipline in the interim time and even afterwards to not make more refinements unless he asked. But truthfully, for both our daughters, he changed more diapers than I did by far. And because I always appreciated him doing it and I didn't correct how he did it. I didn't even tell him when to do it. He was better at that than me.
So if we want our men to follow through on something or support us with something, I'm hearing, and what you really highlight in the book is appreciation just goes so much further than the criticism that we tend to lean towards.
It's more than further, Helena Grace. It's opposites. So criticism and complaint creates an aversion. First of all, it sucks the energy out of people and it creates an aversion to even engage in the domain in which they were criticized. I'll never do that again. And whereas appreciation is something that creates energy, returns energy, can even give someone back more energy than they perceive that they spent, which then they're looking at now, how can I spend that energy on you? And so, for example, in our Understanding Love and Commitment course, we have women and men too, now they get to participate, is make a list of the right person for them. And if they're already in a committed relationship, look at the things that make the right person for them and all the ones that are being fulfilled by the person they're with. And no, they notice the ones that are not. And those are the sources of huge frustrations. But then to go to that person and instead of being like, now I know I'm always mad at you, go to them and go, wow, I made a list of what I really need somebody to be. And oh my gosh, you are 16 out of 22. Can I tell you about this 16 ways that you're so perfect for me? Sure. The first way you're perfect for me is this. and the difference it makes in my life is this, and it has me this, and every time you do that, I fall in love with you all over again. And then the second one is this, and the third one is this, and all of a sudden they're making all the time in the world for this conversation. But universally, and I've had this reported back to me so many times, at the end of hearing all of that, and they're pumped, they got it, they know what they're doing right. What are the other six?
how can
Like,
I be even better for you?
yes.
Mm.
Yes, I wanna be the other 6. And it took Greg a long time to tell me this, but he said, because at one time I was so mad because there was something I needed to be different, and I couldn't come up with any way to connect. And I'm like, "So how do I do this? You can't take any correction at all. How do I do this?" And he thought about it and he got back to me and he said, "This is how you do it. First, you notice what I've done, then and you thank me for what I've done and tell me things you like about it and the difference it's made for you. And then, if you have to, you say, the only thing that would make it more perfect is." And it like this was 25 years into a 26-year marriage. And like it all became clear. This man wants to be perfect for me. He can't stand any indication that he's not perfect for me.
Right.
Of course, that would be the way to ask for something different. This is how to have it be more perfect. This was amazing. And the thing that would make it more perfect is. And it actually, we is another thing we teach in understanding women is how do you, because men want to help. They so want to help.
Mm.
And I'm explaining to the men, and they're aghast when I say that when you say to a woman, "How can I help?" she is thinking, "What do I need done that he can do right?"
Or we're
Right?
so overwhelmed by not even
My
knowing
way.
what the answer is either.
Yes. But if
Yeah.
we knew, what could he do my way? And we say, "No, there's nothing you can do," when they could do it, but they wouldn't do it our way. And so this thing that I discovered and introduced in my relationship with Greg was getting certified. That things that are really important, ask if they'd be willing to get certified in it. That the way that they did it, you could then entrust it to them and it would make a huge difference in your life if they were certified
In the way that you would do
in
it.
the way that you need it to be done. And it may not doesn't have to be precise, but the outcome that you require, which is what
Mm.
they always care about is the outcome. The methods can go all different directions, but if you're paying attention to the outcome. So working like crazy and I need to eat and I don't have enough time to eat. And Greg's like, "Can I make you breakfast?" And I'm like, "No, my breakfast is too complicated. Could I get the pans out?" And I literally thought, what could that hurt? And finally said, "Yes, you can get the pans out." And then and I thanked him for that. And then he was like, "Can I get the stuff out of the refrigerator?" This is over a period of weeks. And always right there was, well, what could that hurt? Right? If you got him out too far in advance, it might spoil, but right, no, that'll be all right.
Yeah.
And he actually worked his way into not only being certified in making my very complicated poached eggs and vegetable broth with greens slightly steamed within the broth.
Wow.
He ended up making them better than I did.
Wow.
Because when he was making my breakfast, that was all he was doing. He was single focused on making my breakfast. I
And
never
on
just
the outcome it would provide for you, and that's something you really
exactly the
highlight.
difference it would make and having it be the way that I liked. As women, we rarely do one thing. I would make my breakfast meanwhile. So I would overcook the eggs or oversteam the grits or because I'm distracted and busy doing 10 things.
Yeah.
He made my breakfast better because that's all he did. And
Yeah.
to him, to do it perfectly for me was worth his capacities.
Yeah.
And men have huge capacities.
Yeah. I
With
would love to just share a story because it happened this Saturday in our
yeah,
household. And I think
sure.
it's the biggest thing is because I was rereading the Queen's Code. And so obviously it was filtrating into how I was communicating with my husband. And I just think it really highlights two key aspects that you focus on in the Queen's Code that you can dive into. And basically we've got very cold we've got very cold weather coming here. And so there's something that I felt like we needed in the house to just be prepared, just to feel like we're good if we get snow or whatever it might be. And I have honestly been asking my husband for probably a year to make sure that we have these things. We need batteries, but very specific type of batteries. And on Saturday, we were talking about the weather that's coming in, etc. And he was looking at the fireplace. And I said to him, I would just feel so safe knowing that we have those and that's taken care of. And he went from telling me he would do it to it will get done to we already have them to all of these different excuses. He became a single focused man. And that afternoon, I was just that was the one thing I said. And that afternoon, he was like, he put on his men's boots and his hat, and he went to 3 different stores. He got more than everything we could possibly need. He got propane gas. He stocked up the pantry. It was like he was a man on a complete mission.
Mhm.
And throughout the day, I would stop. I remember stopping in the kitchen and I wasn't so conscious of this, but I looking back, I was like, I was doing that. I was like, I feel so good that you did that. Oh, thank you so much. Or like, I love you. Just like little tiny moments of appreciation. And it really did make me feel safe knowing he had gone out for 3 hours and just taken care of everything we might possibly need. And we sat down for dinner, and because I had this interview coming up and I was really excited about rereading the book, and he loves hearing what I'm reading, so I was telling him little things and he's like, "It's working. I knew something was different about you today." I was like, "Really? What do you think was different?" He's, "I don't know, it was just something in the way you were communicating it with me." And I think what he was meaning to say was I was really appreciating him.
Mm.
And I think that just example of something so simple that a man and a woman can easily go through in their day-to-day busy lives or a need that needs to be met in the household. I think it just really highlights the teachings that you have about one appreciation. Another is soul focus that a man has, like
Single
when he puts
focus,
his
yeah.
mind to something. And also I express the outcome it would provide for me in him doing that. And it was a feeling of safety.
Mm.
And that's what I think so often we miss is instead of saying, "Why haven't you done that?" or "Can you do that?" I was like, "This is why that's important to me."
Mhm.
So I'd love for you to just, from your awareness, share more about how we as women who really want to thrive in our relationships can add more of that into the way we
Mhm.
communicate.
Besides everything that's in the Queen's Code, so I won't try to teach the thing that all my work was done in order to create. I try to bring to you the things that aren't in there, right? So one thing is that you said you would feel safe. And the way that I look at it is as a hierarchy of instincts. And meaning that there's a specific order and one trumps the others. The way I express it is procreate, then protect, then provide. And the drive to procreate, it isn't just sex and babies, it's entrepreneurship, it's art, right? So create. We are essentially creative beings. And once something's created, then we got to protect it. We've got to protect it. And once it's safe enough, secure enough, then we can be in the space of provide. And most of us love being in that space of wanting to provide and getting to give to people, and we want others to be the same way about us. But because of opposing instincts, we end up having people feel attacked. So they revert from provide into protect, and then they're worst when they think they have to protect themselves. And my husband, tremendous provider, loved being a provider. I told him about the swimming pool that I wanted to put in the backyard. He said, no. He just vetoed it. No explanation whatsoever. I'm like, hello? Who made you the executive branch? Why are you walking away? Isn't this the beginning of the conversation? It didn't occur to him to state the obvious. This is a huge problem. It didn't occur to him to tell me why he was saying no. That I even had I had a to scale drawing with sequins making the water sparkle in the pool. This very evolved plan for this pool. And I took him outside and I showed him the picture and I mapped it onto what was happening there. And he quickly calculated, okay, that would be a $40,000 pool. And he was an accountant, right? And I extract that would be a $250,000 hit to the retirement fund. He didn't veto a pool. He vetoed a $250,000 hit to the retirement fund because of the how many years there were before retirement.
Yeah.
That's what he said no to. Now, he was protecting the retirement fund. And if I had attacked him in that moment, if I'd said something like, you don't care about what I want, which he couldn't not care about.
Mm.
Right? His devotion was such that was not optional. Of course he cared about what I wanted. And he's protecting the retirement fund. But if I had said that, like if I'd made up some reason for him to say no, like you don't care about me or you don't respect me, now he's under attack.
Yeah.
And it would have gotten worse. But because I at least didn't go that far, okay, can you tell me about this? Which then led to me getting to tell him, realizing what was really going on with me, that procreate, procreate. I had ideas for our landscaping, like mice have litters, more and more. And I finally got to sit with myself, notice what was going on with me, think about what did I really need? Did I need him to say yes to the swimming pool? The truth was, no, I didn't need that. And it got to where I could finally articulate what really mattered to me. And I said, what matters is I have ideas and they're my babies. And I need you to love my babies.
Yeah.
Just like our two daughters, I need you to love my babies. Just like my son from my first marriage, I need you to love my babies. My ideas are my babies. I need you to hear about them and I need you to love them. And that's all? Yeah, that's all. And oh. And so we got in this sync where I wanted to do something to the back patio. And it's okay. So I'd like to share with you my idea. I'm not making a request from the financing committee. I just want to share my idea and hopefully you could love on them. And is this a good time? He's okay. All right. Tell me about your idea. Okay, this idea. She's not asking for funding. She's not
He
asking for
doesn't have to go into fight or flight. He doesn't have to stress out.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't. And has come into play in so many ways. Like he was the chief, we called him the chief of safety. And so things I would give our kids permission to do, it didn't matter. It'd be like, you got to check with your dad. He's the chief of safety. And I wanted my daughter to get to go traveling with my mother. And I knew it would flip him out. He told me later, it made all the difference in the world. I started the conversation with, you have the veto on this. You are the chief of safety and you have the veto. And I'd like to tell you why I'd like this to happen and see if we could figure out how it could happen that would satisfy you as the chief of safety. He was all ears. And my daughter ended up going to spend 10 days in France and Switzerland and Italy with my mother, when I said she'd be going with my mother, he goes, so who's going to be the grown up? Always thought it was the source of chaos. So I actually arranged for a grown up in Europe to meet them, a dad that he trusted, right? But it's all the general way that I approach this, and you know this from the Queen's Code, is if we can, even for ourselves, whatever we're critical of ourselves for, go, but what if there's a good reason for that? And what is it? Go looking for it. And instead
Mm,
of what's wrong with me, what if there's a good reason for how hurt I am?
yeah,
Oh, there might be these ideas. Oh, so what do I
yeah.
really need? And what if there's, and when he would do things, what if there's a good reason for that?
And wanting to find out what it is, and that was the difference in what could have been an argument over the pool and not, is you realize there's a reason why he's just saying no. And him getting to articulate that to you helped you actually probably feel even safer. He really has our finances in order.
Yeah.
And you could
Yeah.
see how his brain was working versus the way that your brain was working and find a complement for both. And that's really the difference. It's like the missing unlocked piece of
Yeah.
why we tend to argue in those moments.
Yeah. And one of our graduates calls it from furious to curious.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
like, and then, but what if there's a good reason?
Yeah.
Which is very different. Some people think I'm saying men have a good reason for everything they do, and that makes them mad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what if there's a good reason for that? What if there's a good reason for that? And one man, I said, I assume you have a good reason for everything you did. Would you be willing to tell me the reason why you did that? And this man said, oh, no, I was just being an ass.
Okay.
It shocked me, but I realized he was safe. I wasn't calling him an ass. He didn't have to defend himself. I was saying, you have a good reason for what you do.
Right.
There was no attack in it whatsoever. So he could cough up that he thought he was wrong. And it wasn't going to, it just made me laugh. It didn't have me use it against him, which is another thing we have to pay so much attention to. They Men cannot reveal what they think will be used against them or what we've proven will be used against them. And our instincts have us betray them. They tell us something that really exposes them. And we go tell somebody else what they said. That's the end of revelation. That was something for your ears only. And they don't think they should have to say that. And they don't know we have the instinct that by telling somebody else, this very special person told special thing this person told me shows how special I am. That we have this herd instincts to improve our status and demonstrate. Oh, and he shared this with me. See how much he loves me? To him, that was a complete betrayal.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
You can I can go on and on, huh?
I know there's still, I honestly probably have about 20 more questions written down, but we've spoken on so many beautiful things. And I just love to button things up with maybe from the years and years of research that you've done, what is something that you wish a woman could walk away with today, understanding on a much deeper level when it comes to men?
They love us. They're in awe of us. They need us. And very few of them are trying not to. There's a part of the men's
Yeah.
movement that's trying to not need women for anything, and that's based in a lot of really deep hurt and needs not being met. But they really are naturally intrigued by who we are, and they have more tolerance for us to be different. More, not complete. They still have a way that they think that we're like them. And like I was on a radio show and there were a bunch of college students who were there as part of a program. And I was talking about when women look at men, they see a hairy, misbehaving woman. And this young man said, so is that like when a man looks at a woman, he sees a scattered, emotionally indulgent man? Because they don't know we have diffuse awareness. They keep trying to get us to focus. And they don't know that we don't. And when I teach them about diffuse awareness, they instantly call it multifocus. No, it's not multifocus. but that's the only way they can relate to it because focus is so natural for them. And so we can hurt them. It's one of the reasons why I encourage men to do the Understanding Women course because there's things they've been hurt by because they interpreted it. What would that mean if I did that? Just as we interpret what it would mean if I did that when we're hurt by a man. So there's just so much unintentional hurt that happens that's based in perceptions that are based in
Yeah. Yeah.
misconceptions. And all of it, I just keep pulling the string to get to the bottom of the lack of partnership between us. And it really, it's instinctual behavior that we're unaware. And until we become aware of it, we're pretty much doomed. But we're not doomed because we can't get them to love us. Well, they love us. It's why they're so vulnerable to us. It's why they react in such a huge way. Men are so much more vulnerable to women than they are to each other. There's ways that men can razz and criticize and berate each other that they're unaffected by, that if we say a fraction of the same thing, they're so hurt. And so the flip side of that, Helena Grace, would be the things that women do to try to get men to love them don't work because they're solving the wrong problem. What if men already love you and already admire you, already think you're special, already care about what you need, and they need to be seen and heard and appreciated for who they are. What they want is your admiration. Whose admiration do you want? The people you admire. They like want our admiration because they admire us.
Yeah.
They don't want to be fawned on. They like it's a poor substitute. To be admired by someone you admire, that's hot.
Mm. Yeah.
Do you know, to be honored that someone like look for a man that you admire. What do you admire about him? There's something to admire about every man. To be honored that someone you admire wants to take care of you.
Yeah.
It's a, I mean, this is what I would call an upward spiral. The stairway to heaven.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's
Completely
possible.
agree.
It's
Yeah.
completely possible. And you've seen it. Every little bit makes a difference.
Yes. Yeah, I really have. And it just reminds me that the thing you said, really understanding and embodying they love us, they need us, they want us. My husband will say something like sometimes, I wish you could see through the lens of just knowing I only want the best for you. Like I only want that because we all have our past programming, all have our different beliefs. And that's just his little phrase, and it just that really hits my heart when you say that because it's so true, and if we could just step up to the relationship knowing that, a healthy relationship, we could step up knowing that, I think it would really shift the way in which we communicate. Yeah. Yeah.
And the way that we interpret ourselves.
Yeah.
The biggest gift I got from studying men is I have a completely different relationship to all women and to myself. They think so much more highly of us than we think of ourselves.
Yeah. Alison, I could talk to you for another hour. We have to sadly end it there. But before we do, I will obviously drop the links to your courses or your programs or books. Just tell us where is the best way to find you, connect with you, learn more about your teachings.
Sure. So at AlisonArmstrong.com, that's where all our online curriculum is. There's it's where everything I've produced since 2006 is. And I spend 10 hours a month interacting with the people who are participating in our online curriculum and clarifying, helping with implementation, answering all kinds of different questions in what we call quests. And I think, I don't know when you're posting this, but January 2025 is our 30th anniversary, and all of our online curriculum is more than 30% off for this month until January 31st. And and you don't have to start it when you get it. You can start when you're ready. but this is the time to celebrate with us. And that's where I can be found. So I
Yeah.
keep being, and I love answering people's questions.
Amazing. And definitely read the Queen's Code. It's the most interesting. I'm not going to say too much about it, but the way it's written is a very unique and captivating book that will also help and support you. Thank you so much for being here, Alison. Thank you for sharing your
Welcome.
wisdom with the world.
Thank you. Thanks for doing what you do. Keep going.